Hello and welcome to card number 3. Yes, we are getting there. Okay, card number 3. Here I am showing you a close-up here. I don't know the name of this card. I like to call it a bridge card, but you can call it whatever you want. You are going to need to take one of your black sheets out of your kit and cut that into a top fold A2 card. I just showed you the ephemera that you're going to need to take out of your ephemera kit. And you're also going to need half of one of your 80-pound white sheets. So I'm going to do a dip and smush technique. Now, I don't normally do this on 80-pound paper, but we're going to do one, and we're only going to dip and smush one time. But just be mindful of how much water you're adding, because 80-pound paper doesn't take a lot of moisture really well. So you can see I've put my inks down, and I'm using Distress Oxide Bundled Sage and Distress Oxide Ice Spruce. Smushed it on my craft mat, and now I'm just dipping in, and I'm just going to wipe up, and I'm just going to dry that. Don't worry about the white space, because we are going to go in with another ink and blend into that. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and dry this panel off. If your paper is curling on you, don't worry. When it dries, it's going to lay more flat. You may have to run it through your hands just to kind of flatten it out. The reason why it's doing that is it's a lighter weight paper. It is only 80-pound. Nina Smooth, so it's not normally meant for wet techniques, but I decided to try this one, and it worked out pretty well, and the paper didn't pill or warp too much. So just make sure your paper is really dry before we move on to the next technique. So you can see my paper is curling up there. When I'm done, I will kind of use my hands to kind of flatten it out a little bit. Okay. So we're done with the oxides. Now I'm going to bring in some brushed corduroy distress ink. And you can see me just trying to flatten that paper out a little bit. So I'm going to take the brush corduroy distress ink. And the reason why I'm using distress ink instead of oxide is because oxide has a pigment ink in it. It is a little bit more opaque, where the distress inks can be a little bit more translucent. I'm not trying to cover up the colors we just applied. I'm just trying to blend a color over top of them so that you can still see them through there. Okay, so we are just going to blend ink over top of most of this. I didn't go over top a lot of the oxides, but I wanted to fill in the white spaces with the brush corduroy. So you're going to go ahead and finish that panel just like this. Okay, you're going to take that inked piece, and you're going to take a 3.5-inch circle die. I'm using the Prism Studio Stitch Circle nesting dies, and I'm going to die cut a circle out of our inked piece of paper. So again, I'm going to use my Better Press tape, my best ever tape from Spellbinders, and I'm going to die cut out that circle. Now you can set aside this piece of paper for right now. We're going to do some other trimming of paper, and then we will come back to this one. Okay, so you're going to grab your 6x6 piece of paper of the cogs, and you are going to cut 2 pieces out of this paper. And your pieces are both going to be 4" by 1 3/4 inches. So right now I am cutting this paper down to 4 inches. And then I'm going to trim it down to 1 3/4 inches. So cutting it down to 4, I'm going to set that piece aside. And then we are going to cut 2 pieces at 1.34 inches. 1 and 2. And set those pieces aside that you have left over because we will use them again. And then take your last piece of pattern paper. This is kind of like the leather texture paper. And you're going to cut one piece out of this one. And this piece is going to be 1 3/4 inches by 3 3/4 inches. So again, that's 1 3/4 inches by 3 3/4 inches. And then you've got your 3 pieces of pattern paper we need for the front of this card. Now you're going to take your A2 size card that I had you make out of the black cardstock. Take whatever side, whichever is going to be your front, and you're going to cut 3 1/2 inches off that card front. So you're going to leave a 2-inch flap at the top there. Now you're going to take the 3 1/2 inch piece that you cut off. You're going to put the short side at the top along your guide, just like I did there, and you are going to cut 2 inches off of that. So the flap at the top of your card, that is 2 inches, and then we're adding a 2-inch piece at the bottom. And then we're going to, out of your scraps, the piece that we're cutting off here is not going to be big enough for our bridge part. So if you can find a piece of black scrap cardstock and cut a piece that is 4 inches by 2 inches. Okay, we're going to take that ink piece of paper, and you can just trim off the area where we die cut that circle out of. And we're going to cut 3 pieces off this, and these are going to be 1 7/8 inch, and you're going to cut 3 pieces like that. So I just cut off one number 1. Going to cut another one at 1 7/8 inch, and then we're going to cut a third one at 1 7/8 inch. So that is 3 pieces at 1 7/8 inch. Okay, and there's number 3. Now we are going to take these pieces of paper, and 2 of them we are going to trim down to 4 1/8 inch. So just cutting a smidge off. So there's 1. This next one is going to be 4 1/8 inch. And then our last piece of paper is going to be 3 7/8 inch. 3 7/8. And that is all we need from our inked piece of paper. Okay, it's time to start doing some assembly. So I told you to cut a piece of black cardstock out of some scrap that you have, 4 inch by 2 inch. That is the one that I have sitting there. You're going to take that leather type texture paper. You're going to put some glue on that. And you're going to glue it onto the inked piece of paper that is 3 7/8 by 1 7/8. You're going to have a very small edge on that. It's like 1/8 inch. So you can see me gluing those pieces together. Now I'm going to put some glue on the back of that. And we're going to glue this to the 4 inch by 2 inch piece of black cardstock. And this is our bridge piece that is going to bridge that top flap onto that bottom piece. Now the next 2 pieces are exactly the same size. So you're going to take a gear, the piece of gear paper, and glue it to the inked paper. So that's the first one. And now you're going to do the second one. So So I'm gluing that piece of gear paper to the piece of inked paper. Okay, so that black piece of paper that I have here, that is the black piece of paper that is 4¼ by 2". And you're just going to glue those together. This is going to be the bottom part of our card. And then that next piece is going to be glued on that 2" flap that is attached to our card base. So I'm going to just apply my liquid glue and I'm going to glue that on there. Now it's time to assemble the front of our card. There you go. You can see me placing that bottom piece there. And then the bridge part is going to attach to both of those. I am going to take some of the Best Ever Craft tape, just a little piece, just to hold that flap down. And I'm also going to use a little piece of the Best Ever Craft tape to hold that other piece in place while I glue the bridge on there. So I'm just carefully placing that piece at the bottom of my card base. And I'm just going to use that piece of Best Ever Craft tape just to kind of anchor it there just for a moment while I put on this bridge piece. So I'm just going to place the bridge piece there. I'm going to flip it over and place it. This way I know where to place my adhesive and then I can flip it over and place it on my card. Just decided to zoom in there so you can see that. So that is where I'm going to place that. And I'm just going to do some strong adhesive tape runner. There we go. And I'm going to flip that over into place. You can see I placed it a little bit closer to the left side. And you could actually use this technique and you could place that right in the middle. You could place it on the right side. So there's kind of some versatility to this. And then I just took out my Best Ever Craft tape that was holding that in. So go ahead and grab your 3½ die cut circle. And this time we are going to place it on the inside of our card. We're actually going to finish this card. It's not going to be one of the ones that we finish at the end. So I'm just kind of placing it, kind of see where I want it. I'm going to use some glue. That way I can shift it a little bit if I don't like where I've placed it. So I'm just going to hold it there in the center. I'm going to kind of close my card so I can get the placement of where I want it. And then I'm going to press it into place. And there we go. To me, it looks like there's a moon shining through there. Okay, now we're going to move on to our ephemera pieces. So we are going to take our Tonic Nuvo Aqua Shimmer pen in glitter gloss, and we're going to apply the glitter gloss pen to the wings of the fairies, and we're going to do both of them. So I'm just going to give my pen a shake, give it a little bit of a squeeze to make sure that ink is flowing, and then I am going to just apply this to the wings just to give it a bit of shimmer. And that is the only thing we are going to use our Nuvo Aqua Shimmer pen on. Just going to apply that gently to the wings of both fairies. And that just gives that just an amazing, really amazing shimmer on there. I absolutely love it. And it's perfect for fairy wings. And that is the only thing we had to do to assemble or to prep our ephemera. Okay, time to give these a quick dry. It's not going to take very long. It doesn't take very long where I live because we're very dry climate here, but you do want to make sure that these pieces are dry before we put them on the front of our card. And we're not really applying a lot of that shimmer, so it shouldn't take very long to dry when you're using a heat tool. Okay, let's bring our card in. The larger of the fairies, she is going to go on the front on that bridge part. And I'm going to use some 3D foam to pop her up because the gear that we have, we're going to tuck it under our fairy on that part. So I'm going to grab my 3D foam and I'm just going to put, I don't remember if I did 1 or 2 pieces. Let's see and find out together. Oh, I did 2 pieces and I'm doing it right down the center because her wings are going to go beyond that bridge part. So we don't want any adhesive there. Okay, so we'll just peel off that release paper and we're just going to place her right on that bridge part and she's just going to look perfect just sitting there. Going to take this gear, we're going to cut it in half. We're going to then glue 1 piece. I'm just going to see where I'm placing this one. At the top and slightly to the right. And then we're going to take the second piece and we're going to place it at the bottom, slightly to the left. There you go. And our gears are in place. Now it's time to grab our sentiment. We're going to pop this one up. So grab your 3D foam, put it on there. And then this is going to go in the lower right hand portion of that bottom piece that we created. And then we have the 1 fairy left and she's going to go inside and she's going to be hidden behind the bridge and that bottom anchor part of that card front. So I'm just going to put some glue in. I'm just going to place her right there. Before I press her down, I'm just going to double check. Yep, she's in a perfect spot. And there we go. Card number 3 is done.